And welcome back to the Watchaholic. If you are new here, my name is Melody and I am your host. So if you're wondering what I do here every week, the answer is simple. I talk about the movies and shows that we watched growing up and the ones that just premiered yesterday. So this month, we are celebrating two things here on the pod. We are talking about some of my favorite rom-coms, and not just any rom-coms, Black-led cast rom-coms. That's right, we're doing a little bit different approach here than probably what other podcasts might be doing. And I just kind of wanted to do something different just to celebrate love, but also to really take in Black History Month here in the States. So today's episode is all about 2010's Just Wright. Now, this is probably not a movie that is really well known. I don't think a lot of people have actually heard about this movie, but I will say it is a movie I truly enjoy watching any day of the week. I mean, who cannot get enough of the Queen herself, Queen Latifah, and the handsomely talented, he is so handsome, Common. I mean, what star power do we have in this movie? It's pretty awesome. But before I start just talking about how much I hated Paula Patton's character in this movie, we cannot forget to dive into our Say What segment first. So if you did not listen to last week's episode during our Say What segment this month, we're going to focus on shedding light on some of the best Black actors and actresses in Hollywood today. Last week I covered Denzel Washington, and this week I want to focus on the beautifully talented Viola Davis. This is a woman who is literally the epitome of a successful Black actress in Hollywood. Everything she touches becomes gold. You know, whether she's on TV doing How to Get Away with Murder, films like Fences or Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, which if you have not seen, oh my God, she kills that. Like, is remarkable, just so good. So highly recommend that movie. But the list can just go on. And she is literally one of the best, one of the greats that will go down in history as being one of the best actresses to ever grace our screens. I truly and utterly believe that. So here's some fun facts I found out about Viola Davis while doing my, biography search. And I thought these were really cool because I actually never put these things together. And basically, she is one of the only few actresses who has won an Oscar and a Tony for playing the same part. She won for the play Fences, which if you've never seen, I highly recommend. It's like what a performance. Like her and Denzel Washington together in that are just amazing. You could probably just like Google or YouTube Viola Davis and Fences, and there's this one monologue that she has where she's like just pouring out her feelings to her husband, who's played by Denzel Washington, and it is truly one of the best acting scenes I have ever seen. It is truly remarkable. Another thing, she graduated from Juilliard. And when I read that, I was like, well, no wonder you're as talented AF as you are, because, not everyone can say they went to Juilliard. But surprisingly enough, for someone who went to Juilliard, she actually came up from a really rough, from poverty. Like, she didn't have a lot of money growing up. Like, it was really, really bad. So kudos to her for making it to Juilliard. Just saying. She was nominated for a Golden Globe and an Oscar for her role in 2008's movie Doubt, where literally she only had one speaking scene. Only one. She was totally on screen for only 11 minutes. And this is where I learned this in high school. This saying, I don't know who said this quote, but it's, there are no small roles, only small actors. And that right there is the epitome of what that means, because clearly she was only on screen for 11 minutes and she got nominated for her one scene that was that freaking good. Like, come on. Oh my God. She's also the first Black woman of any nationality to win the Primetime Emmy Award for Outstanding Lead Actress in a Drama Series. That's right. On September 20th, 2015, she won that award for How to Get Away with Murder. I mean, I personally love watching her work, and many people have called her the Black Meryl Streep, and there was an interview where she's quoted, it's a very famous quote, but she had said, people say, oh, you're a Black Meryl Streep. You are, and we love you. There's no one like you. She recalled hearing from executives. She literally remembered executives telling her that, like, oh, okay, then And then she told him, like, okay, then if there is no one like me, if you think that I am that, you pay me what I'm worth and you give me what I'm worth. Oh my God. Like, just saying it out loud is astonishing to hear, because that alone, you know that she is not getting paid the same amount that Meryl Streep probably gets paid to do roles. You know for a fact that she has to fight for the little black roles that there are there for these strong African American women. Like, clearly, like, that is what she's saying. And I really, really hope that this is something that changes in this industry, because as I've mentioned in many of my other episodes, you know, Hollywood is now just coming around to really taking in people of more color, to recognizing people of color in their films in every single department that there is. And also including women. You know, for the longest time, men have always been paid more than women. That is not a shock to the world, but it is what it is. And clearly in this quote, this is something that she's really famously saying, you know, like, one, you're telling me I'm as good as Meryl Streep. Okay, then give me the opportunities to be in as many movies as Meryl Streep has been, and also pay me as much as Meryl Streep is. If I'm just as good as her or better, freaking, like, I know my worth. I know what I deserve. And I just praise Viola Davis, praise her. Just I love everything about her, and I can't wait to see what she does next. She's gonna take over the world. I know she is. Okay, so I am so ready. I'm ready to talk about today's movie. Okay, but before I start, I do want to say one thing. I do want to say thank you to all of you who've been listening to my podcast. It truly means the world to me to know that at least there's some people who are enjoying my podcast and actually want to know what I think about certain movies and topics. Yeah, I love you so, so much. I can't say enough how thankful I am for you. So thank you. Thank you for being here, and thank you so much for listening. But yeah, okay, let's dive in, friend. Let's dive into today's movie, Just Wright. And Just Wright was released on May 14th, 2010. So, like 12 years ago. This movie is old. 12 years ago. It stars some familiar faces, which I've already spoken about. Queen Latifah Common, Paula Patton, and Felicia Rashad, and a whole bunch of famous NBA stars like Dwayne Howard and Dwayne Wade. Like, it's like crazy. Like, so many NBA, like so many NBA little cameos, and it's great. It's, in general, it's a really great cast who I really enjoyed watching on screen. So what is this movie about, you're probably wondering. If you haven't seen this movie, basically Just Wright centers around this character named Leslie, played by Queen Latifah, who is a physical therapist, and she has this god sister named Paula Patton who wants to, like, make it big and, like, meet us, like, basically she wants to live the rich life. That's basically what she wants. But Leslie is this, like, huge NBA, like fan. Like, she loves her Brooklyn Nets, who one of the Brooklyn Nets is played by is played by Scott McKnight. It's a fictional NBA character played by Common. And yeah, basically she runs into Common one day after a game. He invites her to a party. Paula Patton's Morgan is in the party. She kind of gets in the way, and Common ends up liking her. Long story short, he ends up messing up his knee, and the physical therapist that comes to help him is Queen Latifah's character, Leslie. And yeah, it just kind of goes from there. It's really, really good. It's a great film. So I saw this movie today again, actually, before filming this podcast, after, like, I don't know, maybe a year? I can't remember. It's been a while. But I do remember that I had this movie on DVD, and I watched it, like, a lot. Clearly, back in the day, I watched it a lot because I had it on DVD, so clearly I really liked it. Like I had said, this movie is 12 years old, which I cannot believe it has been that long. Like, my God, movies, so long ago. It's crazy. But my initial reaction to this movie was, oh my God, yes, I love it so much. And it was all really, I loved it, I think, so much because I related to it. And to be honest, this is something I've noticed, is I think that movies that I really relate to, like, sit with me differently than movies I just genuinely enjoy for the laughs. Like, if I can relate to it, it automatically becomes a movie that I really, really enjoy. Now, you may be wondering, how in the hell did I relate to a movie about a physical therapist who falls in love with an NBA basketball player? Huh? Huh? Well, I related to it in a way that I always felt that, like, because this is something that Leslie really goes through in the beginning of the movie, is, I always felt like the guys that I wanted to be with only just kind of wanted to be friends with me, or I was always considered their plan B, like the cool chick, but I was never like girlfriend material. I always felt like guys really liked me, but they never wanted to make me their girlfriend, at least the guys that I liked. And this movie kind of really made me like I related to it, because there is actually a scene where Queen Latifah goes on a date early on in the movie with she goes on a blind date. If the character is actually played by Alonso, I think is his name. You've seen him in a lot of other movies these days, but he kind of like, they go on this date together and it goes really well. Like, you're thinking like, oh, it's gonna be great, and then at the end of the date he's just like, oh, I'm not emotionally available, but you're really cool. And like, Queen Latifah like ends up like finishing his sentences because she's heard this by a guy so much about how like, oh, but you're good people, and he realizes like, oh shit, like clearly this girl has gone through the ringer before. So yeah, I think I just really related to that idea that, guys just never wanted to make me their girlfriend. And that kind of sucked. So, yeah. But I watched this movie today and I don't relate to it anymore. But, man, I actually really still enjoyed this movie. It was a typical romantic movie that delivers everything I want it to be, I will say, though, I think there is more romance in this movie than there is comedy. Nevertheless, though, as long as it provides in the romance, I am sold to a movie. Okay, so now I really want to talk about some of my favorite moments in this movie. This is something I really enjoy doing on my podcast. I just like talking about the moments that I remember most and kind of just talking about what worked and why it was just so memorable to me. So the first thing I want to talk about is when Leslie meets Scott McKnight. Now, this scene is so freaking cute and hilarious because I honestly do not know what I would do if I was at a gas station and like somebody that I was like a huge fan of just like rolled up in his car and couldn't figure out, like, basically what happens in the scene is she's putting gas in her car, and then you see Common coming into the gas station with his car. He's like on the phone. He can't figure out how to open up the little gas pump door or whatever. He can't figure it out, so she helps him, and then they just like start chatting, and she's so cool. Like, I don't know if I'd be able to keep my cool in that moment, but they kind of like meet, and she finds out like in that moment like, oh, like this guy's actually really cool. He's not what I thought he would be, and he basically ends up inviting her to his birthday party like on the next Saturday or whatever. But it's such a nice scene. It's also obviously the scene where they first meet, so it's really important to the story as to he obviously will find out right away that she is like a huge Brooklyn Nets fan. Like, she's a diehard. They basically say the same thing. Red and blue runs through my veins. Like, they have that connection, and it's just nice to see. Then there's when Morgan meets Scott. Now, this is both my favorite and least favorite moments in this film, because one, I liked it, and it's really funny, is because at this point, Morgan's character is playing the game as it may be, like she's pretending like, she doesn't know who she is at his birthday party, and she's kind of like, oh, like she starts making up all this shit about how she's like going to a charity event, and Leslie's character is like, what are you doing? And it's just really funny because she really is playing the game, and she plays it well. Now, what I don't like about this scene is because also like proves the point that looks always win over personality, because at that, like right before Morgan shows up, like he's actually really connecting with Leslie and like, oh wow, you look great, like he's like interested. But then the moment Morgan walks in and she's like this like hot, skinny, beautiful Black woman, and she kind of like ignores him, like automatically he like kind of forgets about Leslie. And it's kind of like, why? Because she was pretty? Like, I don't know, like I didn't like that part. I'm like, okay, like all right, so we're playing the whole like, obviously he likes the way she looks more than Leslie, because he hasn't necessarily like really talked to her and gotten to know her personality like he will later on in the film. Speaking of Speaking of looks over personality, have you guys seen Love is Blind? Because I am watching the new season, season 2 on Netflix, and oh my, I love that show. It is my guilty pleasure. Tell me, would you be interested if I did like an episode breakdown of Love is Blind where we kind of just like every episode I'll just like kind of like talk about it? Because I just saw the first 5 episodes because they release them weekly, and I am obsessed. I love that show. It's so funny. The next thing I want to talk about is when Leslie calls out Morgan for leaving Scott. And oh my, it's so good. So basically at this point in the movie, Morgan has decided because Scott has broken his knee or messed up his knee, that she kind of starts getting to that point in the movie where she's like, oh, he messed up his knee, like he's never going to recover, and I'm not going to be able to become this like rich NBA star's wife, and all the ideas of what she thought this life would be have gone out the window. So she decides to leave Scott, and in that moment, when Leslie finds out, she goes back to her house and she kind of confronts Morgan and is like, yo, like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like, how could you do that to him? And she's just like, well, and this is when even more I hate this character, is just kind of like, well, I want to be somebody, and I'm not going to be somebody with, I'm not going to be able to do that with somebody who's been a has-been player. And Queen Latifah is just like, you are fucking messed up. Like, how did you get this way? I've been watching you my whole life, hurting people, disposing of boyfriends like an old shoe. And it's actually really sad that she's had to experience this, because obviously who knows how many times Morgan has had a boyfriend that was really awesome and maybe would have worked with Leslie, but obviously that didn't work out. I mean, at this point, I will say though, I don't know what the age difference is between Morgan and Leslie's characters. I don't know if like Morgan's a lot younger, if she's like similar. No, actually, while I'm saying this out loud, I take it back. She is older. Leslie is older. I can't believe I literally just thought about it. Leslie is 35 and Morgan's like, oh, well, I'm almost 30 and I need to find myself. So she's 5 years older. So that means, I'm going to assume, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that means that Scott was dating a younger woman. Not bad. Look at you, Scott. I don't know why I'm talking like that, but I think it's hilarious. Next scene we have is when both Leslie and Scott are in the piano room and they have that first connection. And I personally love scenes like this in romantic comedies or just romantic movies where, both the main characters have that first connection where they realize like, oh, is this something? Like, is there something more here than just a friendship? But basically in the scene, Scott is in his piano room playing the piano. Queen Latifah's character, Leslie, walks in and they start talking about how tomorrow's a big game and that he's going to do well and not to worry about it, that his knee's going to work and everything like that. Because at this point, he has recovered from his knee and she has basically finished doing her training with him. It's been 8 weeks at this point. And she has like these like chocolate chip cookies, and in between them they have marshmallow. They do look very delicious. I really want to try one. But they're like kind of like playing, like kind of like flirting a little bit, and then they just get really close and they look at each other, and that's that moment where it clicks, especially for Scott, where it's like, oh, like I think I really like this woman. Like something's going on here. And I live for movies like that in romantic comedies. I live for it. I wish I lived in a world where shit like that happened. I mean, maybe things like that happen in real life. I mean, they've never happened to me in that romantic way, but I just live for a moment like that. It's just, it's so beautiful. And I also really like that scene in general because it really shows off the musical talents of both Queen Latifah and Common, because as we know, they both are musical artists on top of actors. So it was just really nice to see Common like just playing on his piano and having Queen Latifah kind of like sing a little bit. And it's just a cute moment that I'm glad that they were able to incorporate into the movie and into the scene. We also have, obviously, one of my favorite parts is when Leslie calls out Scott on his BS because, they finally they finally decide like, let's give it a try. They kiss, they spend the night together, and it's such a beautiful, she's so happy the next day. And then that bitch Morgan shows up and kind of ruins everything. And Scott kind of like, doesn't really know what to do. So he kind of just tells Leslie, like, oh, I didn't mean to hurt you, but it just comes off like really bad. But I just love that Leslie just calls him out. She's just like, oh, I know, I'm a really special friend, and I don't want to be someone's plan B. Like, I want to be someone's plan A. And I love when she calls him out on his shit. Like, she's like, what the fuck, man? Like, you just slept with me and now you're gonna go back to Morgan? Like, what the hell? And she walks out. She doesn't deal with his shit. And I personally enjoyed that. So yes, you tell him how it is, Leslie. Then of course we have pretty much the ending of the film where the characters get back together, but there's this moment right before that actually happens when Scott gives his little speech and runs after Leslie, basically. But he's on a talk show host, and they ask him like, oh, you won the championship, like who do you think, like, how did you do this? And he says, oh, it was because of Leslie. And then he starts talking about Leslie, and as he's talking about how awesome she is, that's in that moment he realizes, like, oh shit, like I made a mistake, like I'm actually in love with her and I should not have left her. And it's just so beautiful. Like, it's just the cheesy part of me, but I absolutely love when I love that moment. I think it's just so nice when he tells this talk show host like what she means to him on national TV, and then he just like walks out. He takes off his mic and everything, and it's just so funny. I love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. And there's actually another moment that I want to talk about, and it's actually when so Scott's playing his first game after he's recovered, and he's just scared to play because he's scared that his knee's going to fail him. And Leslie takes him aside, and she's like, dude, like, wake the fuck up. And she says this one quote, and I absolutely love it. She says, anything you need to do, anything you want to do, you can do. Believe in yourself. You will not fail. And that is what he needs, obviously, that in that moment to just like wake the fuck up. And he does, and he ends up winning the game, and it's wonderful. But I think it was a really important message that was brought across by this character about how, not to be afraid and to really just believe in yourself and believe in what you can do and believe that you can do anything you set your mind to. And I think it was just really beautifully put into the film, into the scene. And then obviously there is the end. Obviously, who doesn't love a good ending of this movie? It is so great. Obviously, what's his name? Scott, comes up with this, just a beautiful speech, of course, because we're talking romance comedies. Whoever wrote it knew I was watching. But I'm just going to say the speech because I think it just brought me to tears. He says, I know you love me. I know the feelings didn't fade away because you're mad at me, and you have every right to be. I'm not leaving these grounds without you. I'm not waking up another morning without you next to me. Leslie, you're just right for me. Ugh, the tears. Cue the tears. Cue the tears. It's actually also the first time in the movie where the actual title is named in the actual line of the movie, because he just says, you just right for me. So I love that scene. It's obviously the ending when they get together, and it just always used to really bring me to tears back in the day. Now it just I shed a tear or two, and it's just a beautiful romantic moment, and very romantic comedy like. Now I really want to talk about my hate for one character, and that is Paula Patton's Morgan. Oh my god, I cannot stand her. Anytime she would talk, I wanted to just throw my shoe at the screen. I have never seen a character that's like so one-dimensional. And at the end of the movie, there was really, to me, still no point in coming back. Like as in justified. Like, oh, okay, she's not too bad. No, I hated her to the very end. Like, even when she comes back to tell Scott, like, that she's sorry she left him, with a note, by the way, she left him a note. She gives him this, like, sob story about how she left because her father left her when she was 3, and she just never let anyone, like, close to her because she thought that they were gonna leave her. So, like, basically she's just saying she has daddy issues. But even, like, while she's telling him this, like, I do not believe her. And honestly, to this day, I do not know if that was a lie or a truth. And it actually really annoys me because maybe if her character, like, they gave her, like, more, or, like, you knew more about her story, other than the fact that she just wanted to be, like, rich. Like, you don't really get much of a backstory from her other than when she kind of tells the sob story to him. But at this point, like, to me, like, there was no coming back from, like, how horrible she was. by just leaving him and not being there for him and just being like, oh well, I want to be somebody. Like I was like, all right, you're a bitch. Like I can't deal with you. I could not believe her. And actually, this actually brings me back to another point, which is why did Scott even take her back? Like she left you. She was never there for you when you were like getting rehab. Was always out shopping, spending your money. She left you like a freaking note on your bedside after she was engaged to you. Like I don't understand why this character, why Scott took her back. And I wish that the writers, excuse me, like had focused on that a little bit longer, because I don't know, I just thought it was weird. He had just, spent the night with Leslie, and they had like this wonderful moment where he really, I think, realized that he was really, really, really into her. And then this bitch rolls back in, and like 2 cents later, he's like giving her a shot. I'm like, why? It was my biggest frustration. I just didn't understand why he took her back. I mean, I guess it's just, his excuse was like, oh, well, I was just going to marry this woman. Like, I feel like I should give her a chance. I'm like, no, she's horrible. Please. Ugh. Okay. That's my end of the rant on how much I could not stand Paula Patton's character. I had to talk about it because I could not stand her. But, aside from that horrid character, even though I do understand why she was there, one of the things I really enjoyed about this movie was I genuinely loved like how both Scott and Leslie got to know each other throughout the film. It was really nice to see that these two characters slowly fall in love with each other instead of it just being like oh, I love this guy overnight. It was nice to see that these people had like been getting to know each other for like 3 months, as just two people. Like she was helping him. Like it was nice to see that instead of it just being like, oh, I loved him from first sight and I wanted to be with him. Like, I think she kind of like liked him at first because she was like, oh, he's cool. But I don't think she like really started to fall for him until these 3 months that they were together. So I really, really liked that part of the movie that they like just really showed the development of the love between these two characters, which is the complete opposite of how it was with Scott and Morgan, because he kind of just like goes after her like right away because she's like beautiful, and then they're dating and then they're engaged. Like it's so fast. Like you just see like a montage of them like kind of like going out in a montage. That's basically what it is. And then all of a sudden they're getting married, and I don't know, I just thought it was like I don't know, I just didn't see the like reason why he loved her other than the fact that she was beautiful. But I mean, this is a movie, so they had to focus really more on Leslie, obviously, because this is about her relationship with Scott more than anything. But yeah. Also, something I really enjoyed was obviously Queen Latifah in this movie. She really, really kills it. She's just perfect for the role. She's so good at playing like that character, which also is like very opposite to what if you've seen her in The Last Holiday, where she's like this kind of like shy character who kind of loves this guy in secret, and she never really says what's on her mind. And I love that this movie was like the complete opposite of that, and she just is so powerful, and she knows what she wants. And I love that. I love that her character knew who she wanted to end up with, and she did not settle for anything less than that. Now, did she have the best chemistry with Common? It wasn't oozing off the screen, but I'll take it. And to me, Common is also just so charming. Like, he plays it off. He is so charming in this film. And also, it's actually side comment about Common. I think it's actually really funny that he plays an NBA player, because he is tall in real life, but like when you see him like next like the actual NBA players playing, like I'm like, oh, you're like tiny. Like you would actually never really be playing in the NBA. So I thought, that's something with basketball movies with characters that are like in the NBA or wanting to be in the NBA. I'm like, would never actually make it. So I love that this movie is really highlighting the fact that you did make it, because it's hilarious. You would never actually play basketball. But yeah. Now there are a couple things, not that many, that actually felt like that they didn't work. Not necessarily about the movie themselves, but for the first one, for example, I feel like this movie did not have the best music supervisor. I don't know. The music just never made me feel things, which I feel like sometimes in movies, the music is really what adds to the scene. It really really brings out those feelings out of you, because it's the music that's doing that. And I feel like this movie kind of fell short on the music, I will say. There's a lot of romantic comedies that have really great music throughout it, and I just feel like, I don't know, this movie didn't really do it for me. Also, if you do not know what a music supervisor is on a film, a music supervisor is basically the person who picks out the songs that are played throughout the movie. So not necessarily like the score of a movie or anything like that. It's kind of like songs. So if you're watching a romantic movie and they start playing a love song or a song like a song plays, that's a music supervisor who has chosen that for that scene. So yeah, I just felt like this music supervisor fell a little bit short. And also, I also like, and I talked about this briefly just before when I was talking about my hate for Paula Patton's character, was the abrupt change of Scott going back to Morgan. Yeah, like I mentioned before, I feel like it was just so abrupt. I just don't understand why. This is a movie. It had to happen for conflict. I'm assuming. I'm going to assume that's the reason, but I don't know. It was just too much of an abrupt change to me, and I was not a fan. Okay, so what do I rate this movie, guys? What do I rate it? I'm gonna rate it 7.5 out of 10. Now that sounds bad, but that's actually not. 7.5 out of 10, and I'm gonna give it a 7.5. It would have gotten an 8. But I'm only going to give it a 7.5 because I think it needed a little bit more comedy. The romance was there all the time. Romance. But I feel like it was missing a touch of more comedy. And I know for a fact that Queen Latifah could have delivered that sort of thing. She does have some moments where she kind of puts in like her own little funny moments. But like, I don't know. I feel like it was just missing the comedy aspect. I don't know. Something was missing. And if you've seen her in Bringing Down the House, which, by the way, if you've never seen, it is one of my favorite Queen Latifah films. Just saying, she is so great. It is on Disney Plus if you're interested in watching it. And so is Just Wright. That is also something you should know if you're thinking about watching this movie, is that this movie is playing on Disney Plus at this time. Yeah, Bringing Down the House. It's her and Steve Martin, and it is hilarious, and it is over the top, and it is awesome. It's not a romantic comedy. It's a comedy, and it's so funny. I love every second of it. Okay, so guys, we have reached the end of today's episode. Wow, what a great movie to rewatch. I really enjoyed that. I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and you know the drill. Please don't forget to rate, subscribe, and of course, review my podcast. It really helps out to really getting my podcast out to other people. So if you really do those things, you're helping a girl out. You can also follow me at the Watchaholic Podcast on Instagram. Send me a DM. Yeah, let me know what movies you would like for me to cover next month. Next month is March. I will just be going into a normal month of just any type of movie that I want. I'm really thinking of going real old school with some movies, so I hope you will be following me for that. And yeah, all right, I'm out of here. Bye.